you guys? The Curious Owl here, and today I am sharing with you guys my January 2020 TBR. So here we are in the new year. It is a new decade. It's a time of greatness. This year is going to be freaking crazy for me because not only am I getting married at the end of the year, I'm hopefully getting a new car and hopefully going to be moving in May, and I'm going to BookCon, and there's so many great things happening this year that I'm so excited to see how the year turns out for me, because I have a lot of books I want to get through, but I don't know how much I'm going to be able to get through considering there's so much happening this year. It's gonna be nuts. But this month is also the HouseCupathon, so if you haven't joined the HouseCupathon yet, you can still do that. I will leave our Discord down in the description below, as well as our Twitter. So with that, I'm gonna go into my TBR for the month. Now, it is extensive because with the HouseCupathon, literally you read anything and it counts. So I had tried to pick as many things as I possibly could to get through this month. And we do have challenges for the HouseCupathon, which you can actually go check out my video with my HouseCupathon TBR, because I do talk about everything that is involved with it and share the books I plan on reading, but I will also talk about them in this video since this is my overall month TBR. Before I share that though, I do want to go over a couple books that I had planned to read in December that I didn't get to read that I'm going to also now read in January, and I think the only one really is Fight Club, which was my December read for the Morganville Vampires, and I think this is the only one in December I did not get a chance to get to other than my random TBR books. And so yeah, I do plan on getting through this one at some point during the month, and then in my HouseCupathon TBR, the next book in the Morganville Vampire series is also my January pick. Okay, now we're gonna go into my HouseCupathon TBR. So first I have the group book, which is Harry Potter and the Philosopher or Sorcerer's Stone. It is worth 100 points when I complete it, and I do have an audiobook version that the last time I had read this for the April HouseCupathon in 2019, I ended up getting through in like a few hours. So this I can crank out anytime, any day at work, and I will be fine. So I have no issues with that. But then we have the challenge of the letter, which is to read a anticipated 5-star read, which I'm picking up Hunting Prince Dracula by Carrie Maniscalco. This is the second book in the Stalking Jack the Ripper series, and I absolutely loved Stalking Jack the Ripper when I read it, and so I don't have any doubt in my mind that I am going to love Hunting Prince Dracula, because I just love Audrey Rose and Thomas Cresswell, and I love Carrie Maniscalco's writing in general, so I'm gonna have a good time. I have a really good feeling about that. The next challenge is Diagon Alley, which is to read a book that is set in a world you've never read from before, and for this I'm picking up Sarah J Maas's A Court of Thorns and Roses, because I've never read a Sarah J Maas book, I've never read anything in the series, and this is the first book in the series, so figured it was a good pick. I'm a little nervous getting into this one though, because I've just kind of heard a lot of mixed reviews about the series. Next is the Quidditch Challenge, which is to read a book that either has a competition or trial or some kind of challenge that the character has to face. This does not count a quest of any kind, because quests typically are from a point A to point B kind of story. We want there to be something more challenging, like the Triwizard Tournament, for instance, in the Goblet of Fire, you know, something more along those lines. And for that, I picked The Elite by Kara Cass. As of today, I actually have listened to this audiobook and completed it, and I ended up rating it 3 out of 5 stars. It was okay, but yeah, so this was my pick for that. So I've already completed one challenge for this month, and I'm very, very excited. The next book is The Invisibility Cloak, which is to read a book that has less than 1,000 ratings on Goodreads. And for this, I picked Color Me In by Natasha Diaz. This particular copy I have is an ARC, so it's not the finished copy, because this book I think came out in September or August, and I just never got around to reading it, so I'm just going to pick up the ARC because according to Goodreads, there are less than 1,000 ratings for this book at this point in time. And the final challenge for the HouseCupathon is the Battle with Voldemort and Finding the Stone, which is to read either an intimidating read or an anticipated read. And for this, I picked Aragon by Christopher Paolini, because this book has been on my TBR essentially since I was like in elementary school, and I was really kind of scared to read it because I didn't know if I was gonna like it. But I think as I've gotten older, I feel like I might like it a lot more, because I think I've gotten so much more into fantasy that this would just be a very easy read for me. But as a little kid, I was really, really nervous to read something like this because of the size of it for one, and the scale of the kind of story it was going to be. So I hope I really like it, because I really want to, and I have almost the entire series in my shelf. So I hope I like it enough to want to read the rest of the series, considering I almost have all of them. I forgot one. I forgot a challenge. So one of the other challenges we have is The Troll, which is to read a book with monsters in it. This is where I'm going to pick up Last Breath by Rachel Caine, which is book 11 in the Morganville Vampire series, because this deals with vampires, and vampires are a type of monster. So now I'm going to go into my random TBRs, which are pretty standard considering that I'm just more so playing catch up at this point, but I'm also going to draw my first random TBR pick for 2020. So I've got Cinder, which I'm actually working through now, which was my June random TBR pick. I have The Birth of Venus by Sarah Dunant, which was July. Monsters Volume 1 was August. The Wicked Will Rise was my September one. Sharp Objects was my October random TBR pick. Rebels and Traitors, my November pick. And December's pick was A Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Cluess. I do have a pretty good reading schedule set up that I hope I can stick to this month, and I think I'll be able to get through all of them and actually have a lot of time to get through a lot of other books that I have planned for this month. Without further ado, I'm going to pick the first book of 2020 for my random TBR series. Okay, and we have Something Strange and Deadly. Ooh, this will be my first Susan Dennard book. That makes me really happy because I have wanted to get into Susan Dennard's work for a very long time, and I have the first book in the series, I think, maybe the first two, and I really want to see how this is because that was her first series, and then I want to get into the Truth Witch series, so I really hope I like that one. In addition to all of these books I am planning on reading, I am also deciding that starting in 2020, I am going to go through a Stephen King reading series where I read everything that Stephen King has ever written. I have read many of Stephen King's books over the last couple of years, and I've greatly enjoyed the majority of them. But I decided that I wanted to start kind of chronologically for the most part because I really want to see how his writing has progressed. Now, this also is going to entail where if I get to a particular series of his, that I will read all of the books in the series before I continue with the next book chronologically that started, because I want to be able to read an entire series back to back to back so I don't lose sight of what exactly happened in the series. So for instance, with the Dark Tower series, if I read the Dark Tower, I am going to read all of the books within the series before I get to the next book that chronologically was released by Stephen King, because I want to be able to get the full story of the Dark Tower before I move on to something else and totally forget what happened with the Dark Tower series. So hope that makes sense. But for my first pick, I am reading his very first book he's ever released, which is Carrie. Now, I read Carrie when I was a junior in high school, and I loved it. It was great. And it's a very fast read. It's very short, so I should have no issues getting through this one in like a day. Along with that, I have decided that I want to get through a series where I actually finish off series that I had started at some point and never finished. And the one I decided to pick for this first month, or the first several months of the year until I finish the series, is the Dorothy Must Die series. So I have The Wicked Will Rise as one of my random TBR books. That is book 2 in the series, and if I can get through that one, I'd like to pick up Yellow Brick War, which is book 3, and because these are so short, I think I could probably get through a couple of these in a month, depending on what all I am exactly reading within the month itself. So if I get through Yellow Brick War, though, I will move on to the next one if I have time at the end of the month, because I just have so many things I'm planning on reading that I don't know if I'll be able to fully finish the series in January, but I probably will when it comes to February. So that makes me very excited. And now something I'm really, really excited to share with you guys is a new random book system that I really want to do, which is what I call the library lottery system. So how this works is I am basically going to get a random book from the library, and this is a way for me to get more usage out of my public library and can extend to any library that I decide to go to. How this works though is you have several different randomized aspects. First, we have age range between middle grade, young adult, and adult, because those three are the age ranges that I really like to read from. Then depending on the age range that I end up getting in the first round of randomization, it will go for a type of genre, whether that's historical fiction, fantasy, contemporary, whatever. It all depends on the age range that I get. And then finally, the last round of that is to have the author last name. So essentially, when I have an age range and I have a genre, I will go by the author last name and find a book that is within that section of the library and figure out which book it is. And then when I actually get to the library, what's going to happen is I'm going to do a random draw from a certain number to a certain number, depending on how big the section is. And without further ado, let us spin for the age range. So I have a wheel set up for middle grade, adult, and young adult, and we're gonna hit spin. Oh boy, okay, so the first age range we get to pick from is middle grade. That's really exciting because I really wanted that. So we have a middle grade book to pick from. So I'm going to pull up now my middle grade wheel for my genre. And I have 4 genres picked for this one. I have more contemporary or realistic fiction, graphic novels, sci-fi, and fantasy. Okay, so we are going with a middle grade contemporary. Now this is gonna be interesting because I don't know of very many middle grade contemporaries, but I'm sure I could probably find something. Now, finally, we are going to go to author last name. So we have all of the letters of the alphabet in this wheel, and we are going to spin for a last name section. The letter D, so we have to find an author last name starting with D, and it has to be middle grade and it has to be a contemporary book. Now, it is entirely possible that when I go to randomize numbers for that particular author section that it might not pop up with a contemporary, but from there I'll basically pick the closest contemporary that there is within that section because I'm not exactly sure how this library is set up. I know that they have stuff alphabetically, but I don't think that they have things separated by genre, which I think would be really cool, but I don't think so. I don't think that's how it's set up. So I will essentially just go by last name and try to find the closest contemporary that I can find based on the random number. But without further ado, let's roll the footage for the library. So we are in the middle grade section of the library. We are right at the start of the author's last name D, and we're gonna pick number 438, which was a number that Robert ended up picking between 1 and 1,000, since I figured there was only about 1,000 books here. So we're gonna get started. So the closest contemporary that I was able to get with 438 is Chloe in India by Kate Darton. So this looks like it's going to be about 2 girls that are from different areas of the world and they go to school together or something like that. So this is going to be great because this is going to help with teaching ideas of, you know, racial differences and how we're not really all that different. And finally, the last couple books I do have on my TBR, even though right now it's not going to be clear whether or not I'm going to even get to them, but I do have Fire and Blood and The Knight of the Seven Kingdoms by George R.R. Martin on there because if nothing else, by the end of the month, if I somehow get through all of these books and need something to read, I do have those on standby because those are kind of books I want to get to eventually, and I'm going to keep putting them on TBRs because I do want to finish out the entirety of the Game of Thrones world at this point if I can, but Fire and Blood's kind of a big guy, so I don't know if it's going to happen or not. But anyway, wow, that is a lot of books. So with the HouseCupathon though, I think that many of these I can fly through pretty well. Unfortunately, a lot of these don't have audiobooks that I can access on Overdrive, which kind of sucks, but I'm gonna still try regardless to get through as many books as I possibly can. So let me know what you guys have for your TBRs down in the comments below. Thank you guys so much for joining me in this video. If you guys did enjoy it, please do give it a big thumbs up. And if you're not already and you'd like to be, hit that button down below and subscribe to become an owlet in our flock. And I will see all of you guys in my next video. Bye guys.